So today we are going to start procedures, functions, and triggers. A small introduction about these things and how these can be helpful in your PLSQL. So we will start with procedures. Whatever the syntax used for declaring a procedure, almost similar syntaxes for the functions as well as for the triggers. So they have some kind of similarities also and some kind of dissimilarities also. So we will cover all these things. So first of all, I hope screen is clear, visible.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Yes, sir.
So a procedure is basically a module that is performing one or more actions and it does not need to return any values. So this is the main difference between procedure and function, that procedure do not need to return any of the values. So procedure, as in other programming language, what is a procedure? Procedure is just a set of statements that are combined together and they are given a name and they will perform some specific task. Syntax of creating a procedure is very simple. Again, create or replace procedure. All these are the keywords. Create or replace procedure, followed by name of the procedure. You can give any name. Then square bracket indicates it is an optional part, which you can use to define parameters. Then first parameter, these are again in, out, and in, out. These are the keywords. This is or means you have to specify either in or out or in, out. You can use any values out of these three values. Then followed by the data type of parameter, then comma, second parameter. Same step will be followed. So you have to specify three elements. One is the parameter, second one is the name of the parameter, then one of out of these three values, in, out, or in, out. Third one is data type. Next, you can specify as many parameter as you want. Parameters are basically a way of communication. You can pass the values from the outer programs, from the other program to this particular procedure using the parameters. Then again, keyword is or as. You have to specify either is or you have to specify either as. Then local declaration parts will be there where you can define the local variables. Then begin section, exception section, and rest of the all the blocks are same as that of any PLSQL block that we have already covered. So begin part, exception part, end part, that is already covered. Only this part is new, where you have to define the name of the procedure. You have to tell the system that you are going to create a procedure. So you have a command create followed by name of the procedure, procedure keyword, then a name of the keyword, then name of the procedure, then followed by list of parameter, is or as. So we will cover all these part one by one. So the keyword is will be used when the procedure is nested into some other block. So if the procedure is a part of some another block, then you can use is a keyword. Otherwise, if the procedure is a standalone procedure, then you have to use as keyword. So as keyword and is keyword, you can either use is or you can use as according to the situation. So we can have two kind of situation, whether our procedure is a part of some broader block or if it is a standalone. So if it is a standalone, you can use you have to use as keyword. Otherwise, you can use is keyword. So then procedure may have zero to many parameter, but it minimum zero parameter means no parameter is there, no parameter has been defined, and there is no upper limit to define the parameters. You can have any parameters. Every procedure has two parts. One is a header portion which comes before as. So whatever before as or is, these are the two keywords. Whatever comes before this keyword, that is called header section, and whatever comes after this keyword, that is called body section. So we have every procedure that is divided into two parts, header part and body part. So as you can see here, so this is the header part and this is the body part. So whatever comes before is a statement, that is header part. So this is header part and this is body part. So this is uh, how procedures are defined. So the word replace is optional. Again, the word replace, as you can see here, create or replace. So this part is also optional. So if you define the replace, then word replace is not used in the header of the procedure. Then in order to change the code of the procedure, it must be dropped first and then recreated. That means if you once the procedure is created and later on you want to change the codes of those procedures, then you cannot change it if you haven't used replace. So if you have not used replace command while creating a procedure, then the method is that you have to first drop the procedure. That means every statement that you have written in the procedure, you have to delete that and then recreate the procedure. But if you have used replace command while creating a procedure, then you can update the procedure at any time. You can change any command from the procedure at any time. So it is the preferable way of creating a procedure. So whenever you create a procedure, always use the replace option, because it allows you to change the code of the procedure. Then create or replace. So this is how replace works. So it is again an important part. So you can directly write create procedure, or you can write create or replace procedure. If you write replace, this means you can change the body of the procedure. Like here, if you want to add some new command, that can be done easily if you have used the replace keyword. Otherwise it is very difficult to otherwise it is, you have to drop the procedure first, then only you can change the body. So this is example of creating a procedure. So I will create a procedure welcome message that will accept one variable and print that variable on the monitor. So I will create or replace procedure welcome message which accepts one argument. P name is the name of the argument, in is a keyword, and data type is varchar2. So this is the header part before as, and this is the body part. So in the body part I write only one statement, that is dbms output dot put line welcome whatever the variable name p name that is passed from the other program, from the other environment. So that variable name will be printed on the monitor using this procedure. So that's why it is welcome message. So it is just printing a welcome message. In order to execute a procedure in SQL star plus, you have to use the execute command. So execute command is that execute the procedure name, execute followed by procedure name. For example, our procedure name is welcome message. Then I will write in my command prompt, SQL command prompt, execute welcome message. So this will print the welcome message. By default no value is passed, so I can write here, for example, I can write Harish. So the message will, this message will be passed to the variable, this value will be passed to the variable p name, and from here it will be printed on the monitor. So you can call the procedure like in this example. I hope it is clear. Then we have parameters. When you are defining a parameter, then you can consider number of things. Parameters are the means to pass the values to and from the calling environment to the server. So one side, at the one side we have an Oracle server that is executing PLSQL procedures, and another one is the calling environment, that can be your program, your DBMS command, whatever it is. So you can pass the values from your environment or your program to the PLSQL procedure, so by the way of parameters. So these are the values that will be processed or returned by the execution of the program, execution of the procedure. So there are three kind of procedures. These are the types of procedure that we have already defined: in, out, and in out. So the mode specify whether the parameter passed is read in or a receptacle or what comes out. So either you can transfer the values, that means passing the values to the procedure, or you can getting the values from the procedure, or both way. So this is passing the value to the procedure. If the variable is declared with this particular option, then that variable will be used only for passing the value to the procedure. If variable is using only with this option, then that variable will be used for receiving the values from the procedures. And this means your variable will work in both way. It will be also used for passing the values, as well as it will also used to returning the value. So in means so this is a detailed explanation of all these keywords. In main, it passes a value into the program. It is read only variable, and constant literals and expressions can be passed, cannot be changed within a program, and it is the default mode. So if you haven't mentioned anything, then by default all the variable will be in the in mode. So in mode means they will be read only. We cannot change the values of these variables in our program. And out mode means it is write only value, and we cannot assign the default values here, and has to be a variable name and value assigned only if the program is successful. So if there is some error in the program, then this variable will not get any value. So it will use for passing a value back from the program. So if you want to get the program from get the values from the outer world, then you have to use the in keyword. And if you want to pass the values to the outer world, then you have to use out keyword. And in out means passes the values in and also send the values back. And it again has to be a variable, and value will be read and then written. Both mode will be there. So this is example of how you can use the all this procedure. Find min. X is the name of variable. In specify that you will pass the values from the outer world to this particular variable, and number means it is the data type of variable X. Similarly, Y in number, it will again receive the values from the outer world, and in number means it is a number means it is a data type of this particular variable. In specify that this is again a receiver. Z out number, data type of variable is number, name of variable is Z, and out specify that this is your output variable. This variable will be used for returning the value. Is begin, if X is less than Y, then Z is equal to X, else Z is equal to Y. So I am assigning the value of X to the Z or Y to the Z. That is because it is out variable. That means it is a writable. So you cannot read the values from the Z, but you can write the values to the Z. In the similar way, X and Y, they can be read, but they cannot be changed. In this case, so you can read the values of X and Y, but you cannot change the value of X and Y. So here I am passing the value X to the Z, or I am passing the value Y to the Z. If X is less than Y according to condition, so this Z value will be automatically passed to the calling function, calling method, the calling program, which is calling the find min method. So this is small program that will return the minimum value of the two values X and Y that is passed to it, and the minimum value can be find out using the variable Z. So by assessing the variable Z, you can find out which value is the minimum value. So this is how it works. So the formal parameters are the names specified within the parentheses as a part of the header of the module, and actual parameters. I hope you are clear about these two definitions. One is formal parameter, one is actual parameter. So the parameters that are defined while defining a procedure, that are called formal parameters, and the actual values that are passed when you call that particular method, those actual values are called actual parameters. The formal parameter and the related actual parameter must be of the same or compatible data type. हेलो
Yes,
हेलो
sir.
बेटा, कनेक्टेड है
Yes,
सारे?
sir. Yes, sir.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
हाँ,
Yes, sir.
ਚਲੋ ਆਪਣਾ ਗੱਲ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਸੀ ਆਪਾਂ ਫਾਰਮਲ ਐਂਡ ਐਕਚੁਅਲ ਪੈਰਾਮੀਟਰਸ ਦੀ, ਹੈ ਨਾ। ਫਾਰਮਲ ਪੈਰਾਮੀਟਰ ਐਂਡ ਐਕਚੁਅਲ ਪੈਰਾਮੀਟਰ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆਲਰੇਡੀ ਪੜ੍ਹੇ ਹੋਣਗੇ, ਹਰ ਲੈਂਗੁਏਜ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਆਉਂਦੇ ਆ। ਸੋ ਵਟ ਐਵਰ ਯੂ ਡਿਫਾਈਨ in the parenthesis while creating a method or procedure, that is called formal parameter. Whatever the variable that you defined while passing or while calling the method, that are called actual parameters. And both are related, both must have same compatible data type, and two methods can be used to match the actual parameter with the formal parameter. While matching, by default it is positional notation or it is named notation. In the positional notation, we simply associate the parameter as per their order. The order of the parameter used when executing the procedural match, the order in the procedure header exactly. That means the first parameter will be passed to the first parameter in the header. Second parameter, for example, if I declare a function a having variable x and y, and when I call function a with value 5 and 3, so 5 will be passed to the first parameter, 3 will be passed to the second parameter, and so on. So this is called positional notation. So whenever this mapping is done as per the position or as per the order, so that is called your positional parameter. Second is you can specify the name also. Okay, you want to pass this parameter to what name, so accordingly you can have named notation where you can explicitly associate the formal parameter with the actual parameter. So you have to use equal to and more than symbol. So you will write like this: formal parameter equal to more than, then followed by argument value. So in a named notation, the order does not matter. So you can pass the first value to the second parameter and you can pass the second value to the first parameter. So ordering does not matter in the named notation. So you can use either positional or named, whatever you feel comfortable. So if you mix the notation, then you have to list the positional notation before the named notation. So first you will define the positional notation. For example, if I write x, y, and z, then you have to put some values here. So then you have to put the named notation after the positional notation. So first of all you have to put the, so if you write other way, if you write named notation first and followed by positional notation, then it will be an error. Got my point? So either you can use positional notation or you can use named notation. It is up to you, but PLSQL provide two different ways of matching formal parameter with the actual parameter. So this is example of passing the values in the ordered positional way. For example, I have procedure find a name. This is the first value id in a number. In means input variable, id the name of variable, and number is data type, name output variable, and varchar. So you can when if you call this method find name 127 name, so this id will get the 127 value and name will get the whatever the name value here. So it is a positional parameter matching. Then we have functions. That is all about procedure. Next we have functions. So functions are a type of stored code and are very similar to procedure, and the significant difference is that a function in a PLSQL block that returns a single value. So this is the difference between function and procedure, that procedure will not return a value, but the functions will return a value, and that will be only single value. But in case of procedure, you can return the value with the help of out keyword, and you can define as many variable as out as you want. So that means you can return more than one values from the procedure. But in case of functions, you can return only single value. The function can accept one, many, or no parameter, but a function must have the return clause. So it must define the return clause, otherwise there will be an error in the executable section of the function. Data type of return value must also be declared as in other programming language. Return type should be declared in the similar way. In PLSQL, you have to define the data type of return value that must be declared in the header of the function, and function has output that need to be assigned to a variable. So whenever you call a function, then you have to put it against some variable. For example, find min is a name of function, then I will write like this. Okay. So whatever the value returned by the function, that will be passed to some variable. So function has output, that means it need to be assigned to a variable, or it can be used in a select statement. So these are the differences you can say, or yeah, these are the some similarities between functions and procedure. Both are the set of statements that are performing some particular task. Both can set the parameters, but both can return the values, but function can return only single value, and procedure may return more than one value. So syntax for creating a function is as follow. Again, it is same: create or replace. Or replace is the optional part. Function, the now keyword we have to use is function, followed by function name, list of parameter, and this is also the new entry in procedure. We don't need to write like these statement, but in case of function, we have to write return followed by the data type of that you want to return is a keyword. Rest of the part is same as that of procedure, but in the body you must define return statement, otherwise there will be an error. So these are some changes in the function and procedure. Function does not necessarily have to have any parameter, but it must have a return variable. A return variable is compulsory. You can omit the parameter, but you cannot omit the return statement. So return statement must be compulsory in the function. It must return the value for all the varying possible execution streams. Sometimes we are using if else. So if a condition met, we have to do this part, else condition at. So in every case, you have to final statement must be a return. So there should be no case where there is no return value. So if you are not, if there is a case that will not return any value, then it will be a problem. Then your program will not get compiled and it will be error. Then return statement does not have to appear as the last line of the main execution section, and there may be more than one return statement. For example, one return statement in if else if part, one statement in else part. So this kind of options are also there. So you can have more than one return statement, but at a time only one will be executing. So a function may have in out or in out parameter, but you rarely see anything except the in parameter in case of a function. So function, in case of function, we are passing the in variable. All the parameters are of type in, and you can return the value using the return statement. So this is example of function. As you can see, create or replace function, show description. This is the name of the function. This is a parameter I course number. So I stand for here input. So I am using input I notation for representing input variable. So that means that way I can identify that this is the input variable. So I underscore course number, data type is number, return varchar2. So this function will return a value of varchar2 type. As this is now a description, so variable description v. Now v stand for that it is a variable. So it is again my notation. You can use any notation. So v description, this way I can identify that this variable is a variable that is declared in my program, and this variable is a variable that is from the parameters, and this is a way of identification only. So you can use any name. So v description, it is of varchar type. So in the begin statement, I will write select description into v description. So this is name of the column, and whatever written in that column, that is transferred to the variable v description from course, where course number is equal to I course number. So whatever I passed as a argument in the function name, that value is transferred here, and this query will be executed according to that value, and it will return the V description. Now chances are there that there is no entry correspond to this number that I am passing here. So in that case the exception will be there, so we have to handle that exception, because if we are not returning in every case then there will be a problem. So we have to handle the exception. When no data found, then again we have to return something, and when other kuch aur bhi ho janda, then if something other happens, again we have to return something. So return the course is not in the database, that is a message that will be appearing if there is no data found, and this is the message that is appearing when error in running show description. This is the error when something other happens. So in this way you can see whatever the case is, whether my program is executing successfully or it is not executing successfully, there must be a return statement for every case. So you have to return something in case of function. Then we have two options, either we can use return statement or we can use out statement. Both perform similar tasks. So return can return only one value, but out using out we can return the multiple values of different data type also. This is the two advantages of using out statement instead of return statement. So in case of return we can return only one value and the data type. So we are talking about return and out statement. So we have two options to pass the parameter back, to pass the values back to the calling program. Either we can use return statement or we can use out statement. So in both way, some advantages are there, some disadvantages are there. So return can return only one value, but using out we can return multiple values, and that are also of the different data type. But in case of return we can return one value that is of same data type. So return is the keyword that is that instructs the compiler to switch the control from the sub program to the calling statement. And method chaining is not possible without but it can be done with the return. Method chaining means when you pass the values from one method to another method. For example, in this statement, put line is a method, and you can passing whatever the returned by calculated into the put line. So this is a way of chaining. So you can create a chain like this. So the value that is passed by, that is returned by one method, that value is passed to the another method as a argument. So this is called method chaining. So method chaining is not possible in case of if you are using out variable. Otherwise, if you are using return variable, then you can perform the method chaining. So these are the some pros and cons according to which you can decide whether you want to use a return statement or you can use out statement. So if you have to perform some method chaining, then you have to opt for the return statement. Otherwise, if you want to return multiple values with different data types, then you can use out variable for returning the values. Then you can use SQL function in different ways, like you can use them in the anonymous block. For example, this is a small program that demonstrates the working of a show description method. So you can create your small block, and you can write because it is returning some value. It is returning some value, so you need a variable. So first of all, you need to declare a variable. Then you will write the statement like v description is equal to show description ampersand sv. So this is substitution variable. When your this program this module is executing, it will ask you to enter the value of sv number. So whatever you enter from the keyboard, that value is passed to the show description method, and whatever returned from the show description method, that is passed to the v description, and from that it is printed on the monitor. So you can print the value on the monitor using dbms output dot put line method. And finally, so this is one way of calling the, so this is called to the method that you have declared in the previous slide. So similarly, you can also call your method in some SQL statements, like you can write select course number show description course number. So whatever the course number here, you can pass the same course number to this method, that will retrieve the description of that course, and it will create a new column here. So two columns will be created. One is for the course number, another one is for the short description of the course number, and the description will be retrieved from the database at the runtime for every course number that is passed from this SQL query to this particular method. So in this way, you can use your method, your function, either in the SQL statement or in some block, in some program. This way you can write the modular program in PL SQL. Next is triggers. Again, it is similar to function, or you can say procedure. Triggers are data is a stored PL SQL program. Triggers are just a program. It is similar to other method, other procedure, or other function. So it is just a stored PL SQL program associated with a specific database table. So you can associate a trigger with a table. That means whenever something happens to that table, your program will be executing. So Oracle execute, also known as fires, a database trigger automatically when a given SQL operation like insert, update, or delete affects the table. So this is, you can associate the trigger with all these commands, either insertion, updation, or deletion. That means whenever someone going to insert the data into the table, or update the data from the table, or delete the data from the table, then some SQL program can be executed. So unlike a procedure or function which must be invoked explicitly, database triggers are invoked implicitly, automatically, whenever some event occurs. So it is basically event based. So whenever some event occur, in this case, event means either insertion, deletion, or updation. Insertion, deletion, or updation. Any of these event occur, then your program will be called automatically. Implicitly mean automatically, and a trigger does not accept the argument. This is also the difference between trigger and function or parameter procedure. In procedure or function, you can pass the values with the help of argument, but in case of trigger, you cannot pass some values. Trigger does not accept any of the argument. These are parameter less function or procedure. So can be used for multiple tasks like audit data modification, log event transparently, enforce complex business rule, drive column values automatically, implement complex security, maintain and replicate tables. So there are a number of tasks where you can perform, you can use the triggers. So you can apply some security rules using triggers. So number of options that depends upon your imagination, or depends upon your requirement, that how you want to use the triggers. Then we have, you can associate up to 12 database triggers to with a given table. Now you have to think why it is 12 only. So it is the maximum limit. That means with the single table, you can associate maximum 12 triggers, different triggers that will be executing whenever some event occur. So now it is your question to find out why only 12, why not more than 12. You have to think upon it, and you have to find out the answer of this question yourself. Then database trigger has three parts. One is the triggering event, another one is the optional trigger constraint, and a trigger action. Third thing is, so first of all, it will look for the event. If that event happen, then it will trigger some action. So three parts are there: event, constraint, and action. So we will cover one by one. So when an event occurs, database trigger is fired, and a predefined PLSQL block will perform the necessary action. So that is how it all happens. So this is an example of creating a trigger. It is again very much simple. Uh, Create is a command, or replace. You now I hope you must be knowing about create or replace, the meaning of this particular command, or replace, है ना? So now instead of procedure, we will write the trigger followed by name of the trigger. So these are the keyword. Either the trigger will be executing before, or it will be executing after the event. So either you can create the trigger that will be executing before the event or after the event. Then you have to specify the event name. Then you have to specify the table name for which you want to create the trigger, followed by optional argument for each row. So we will discuss one by one all this, and followed by condition, when condition. So as we have already discussed, that trigger has three part. One is the event. So this is the event, this is the table, and this is the action. So this is the action. So this is the condition, event, condition, action. If some event occur, if some condition met, only then the action will be performed. So this part is same as that of procedure or any function or any block, PLSQL block. It has three part: begin, declare, begin, and exception. So this is same that we have already covered. So only thing to consider is this: how to create a trigger. So to create a trigger, we have to use the keyword create or replace trigger followed by trigger name. Now we will cover all these things. What is the meaning of all these things one by one? So let us start with the before and after. As the name specify, trigger name reference the name of the trigger. Before or after specify when the trigger is fired. It can be fired before the event or it can be fired after the event. Now what is event? Event is basically this: insert, delete, or update. So either you have to perform some insertion in a table, so that is insertion. So your trigger can fire before the insertion or your trigger can fire after the insertion. That means you want to perform some task before inserting the data or you want to perform some task after inserting the data. That depends upon situation. So accordingly you can specify whether before or after. So the triggering event references a DML statement issued against the table. For example, insert, delete, and update. And the table name is the name of the table that is associated with the trigger. So you can associate the trigger with each table. So if your database has 10 tables and for every table maximum 12 triggers can be declared. That means for your database, if you have 10 tables, 10 into 12, total 120 triggers can be declared. Now the clause for each row, now it is important, specifies whether the trigger is a row trigger. Row trigger means it will be fired once each row for each modified rows. For example, I am inserting table, inserting, for example, I am deleting according to some condition, and with the result I can delete 5 rows. Now if this particular condition is specified, if this particular clause is specified for each row, that means my trigger will be executed for 5 times for each row that is affected. So if when first row is deleted, my trigger will be executed. When second row is deleted, my trigger is again executed. And if this is not specified, then only one trigger will be executed for one time when all this deletion occur. Whether you delete 5 rows, whether you delete 10 rows, your trigger program will be executing only for one time. When for each row is not specified. If it is specified, then for each affected row, trigger will be executing. And then finally we have when clause. So when clause specify the condition for a trigger to be fired. So bear in mind that if you drop a table, all the associated triggers for the table are also dropped as well. So this is because triggers are associated with the table, and if there is no table, then there will be no trigger also. So trigger may be called before or after. Insert, update, delete, before, after option can be used to specify when the trigger body should be fired with respect to triggering statement. So if the user indicate before, the Oracle fire the trigger before the execution, otherwise after the execution. That is almost clear. Trigger may be row or statement type. If the statement for each row is present in the create trigger clause, trigger is a row trigger. Row trigger is fired for each row affected by the triggering statement. The statement trigger, however, is fired only once for the triggering statement. So these are the two kind of triggers. Your trigger can be a row trigger or your trigger can be a statement trigger. Row trigger, and by default it is statement trigger. But if you specify for each row, then it will become a row trigger. That means for each affected row, the trigger will be executing for one time. Now this is example of trigger. Create or replace trigger. My trigger one is a name. Before means this trigger will be executing before the event. Now the events are delete or insert or update. So I have mentioned all the events. So whenever some deletion operation is there, whenever some insertion operation is there, whenever some updation operation is there on employee table, then this trigger will be executed. So in the begin section, I am checking the date. If system date is day is in Saturday, Sunday, means whatever the date of my system, that date is that day is Saturday or Sunday, or the date is or the time is, I am collecting the time here, a time is between 8:30 to 6:30, then application error will be raised. So I will raise an application error, the table is secured. This means this trigger will not allow you to delete or insert or update the employee table on any Saturday, any Sunday between 6:30 to 8:30 to 6:30 evening, 8:30 morning to 6:30 evening. So this is, you can apply some rule. Okay, from 6:30 to 8:30 to 6:30 evening on Saturday, Sunday, nobody should be allowed to insert, delete, or update the data in my employee table. So this kind of task can be done with the help of trigger. So this is again similar row trigger. In this case, I am creating, I am maintaining three different table. One is X employee, one is N employee, one is C employee, one is U employee. So these are the four different kind of tables, and I am associating delete, insert, or update after, means whenever some delete operation is there, after that we have this particular trigger that will be executing. So if I am deleting some element, some row, and I am associating with it for each row, I am associating with row. So if I am deleting some row, I want to save the deleted data in some secondary table. So that table is called my X employee, because now employee is removed. So that becomes my X employee. So I will insert that data. I will delete the data from the employee table, and in the same time when this happen, I will put the data into, I will insert the data into a new table that is called X employee. Similarly, if I insert the data into my this particular table, at the same time I will put the data into an employee table. Similarly, if I update the data, then I will update the data in C employee. C stands for current employee. So I am maintaining four parallel tables along with my employee table for the security of my data, for maintaining the for maintaining my data. For example, if something I need to back up, I need to recover from some problem, then I must have the data. So this kind of action can be performed by the trigger simultaneously. So whenever I perform some action on the employee table, at the same time this trigger will update either of these four table. Either it will update X employee, N employee, C employee, U employee, according to the kind of action. So this kind of task can be done with the help of triggers. So you can, this is the last slide. So you can delete, for example, if I write this statement, delete from employee where employee last name is Yoshi. So one row is deleted. At the same time, if I check the data in my X employee table, then I will see the data like this. So whatever deleted from the employee table, that information is entered into the X employee table by the trigger automatically. So I haven't issued any command here on the SQL prompt, but this entry will be done by the trigger automatically. Then you can enable or disable the trigger. Once the triggers are created, you can enable them or disable them using the command disable. So alter trigger name, disable, alter disable table name, disable or disable all trigger. To enable a trigger which is disabled, we can use again the same almost same command. Instead of disable, now I will write enable. So alter table name, enable, followed by trigger name. So all triggers can be enabled for a specific table by using the command alter table name, enable all triggers. Similarly, you can remove the trigger by using a drop command, drop trigger name, that will remove the trigger from the table. So this is three commands that you can use for handling the triggers. You can enable it, you can disable it, or you can drop a trigger from the database itself. So this way, uh, so triggers are really very useful in real-time scenario. They can be executed automatically when some event occur. So you can associate the trigger with some event, and that trigger will take care of all the logic, all the tasks that you want to perform automatically when something happens. So that is all about today's lecture. Any doubt, any question you can ask.